So here's Glenn. He's got the Ducati ST2, and he just picked this bike up. He got it from somebody in his neighborhood, if I remember. And he had a few issues that we were going to try to work on over at the shop. This was during the week, and some of the things we were confident we could take care of right away. Number one, the bike needed a chain. The bike needs a counter sprocket. Needs several other things that Glenn's working on one by one, but we figured we'd get some of this stuff started today. So we put the bike up on the lift, and you know, when you buy a used bike with 26,000 miles, sometimes there's little surprises. Well, surprise number one was there's a tooth missing on the countershaft sprocket, and I'm not sure how that happens, but this countershaft sprocket had a lot of wear on it. You could see it had hooks ground in it, and I wasn't sure, because I'm not a Ducati mechanic, that the countershaft sprocket had a tremendous amount of play in it. In fact, I even made a little video at a play. I was going to ask Luciano if that was common to those bikes. So, and basically what I tried to do is, here's Glenn with the chain cutter, the chain tool, which I'm so happy in the last 2 weeks I've gotten really good use with this tool. It was an $80 tool. It paid worth every penny too, believe me. And so here, this is the countershaft sprocket. We finally cleaned that up, got rid of it. I looked at that tooth, and there was another tooth that had this one here has a big chip out of it. It doesn't have a point. So again, I hope other people will at least check their equipment from after looking at this. And you do have to replace chains and sprockets are replaced. So they're like windshield washers, windshield wipers. They're replacement items. So what Glenn and I did this day, and we learned a couple of things that we're going to try to pass on. Number one, inside way to countershaft sprocket. I guarantee you, whoever owned the bike before never ever cleaned it, ever. I mean, there was gunk in there. I used up a roll of paper towels and a quart of parts cleaner cleaning it out. And in that area, while we had the bike up on the stands and with the back wheel off, we tried to clean up as much of the grease as possible. There's probably 10 years of grease on there. And we're going to try to paint some of these plastic parts that they've faded to gray over the years. Painting them black will look nice. All of the bolts that Glenn took out, you can see they're totally corroded. And so getting these, running them on a wire wheel and polishing the heads will get all that done. Countershaft sprocket, I spent about an hour cleaning this area right here. This was not fun either. And it was the kind of thing that if you don't have enough parts cleaner or kerosene or whatever, it's something to dissolve that. I don't like using gasoline. I know some people use it, but I don't. And I was trying to get some pictures of some of these bolts on a Ducati. They should shoot the engineer that decided where to put those bolts. So while Glenn was pulling out the last couple of bolts, I decided I'd go down to the polishing wheel, clean up some of the axle nuts, clean up some of the parts that really, these parts really were 20 years of corrosion on them. The good news is, once you run them on a wheel, run them on a wire wheel, run them on a polishing wheel, whatever, you can see how corroded these bolts are, and they polish right up. Then I try to put a coating of WD-40 on everything so it wouldn't get more corroded and more rusted when we put it back together. Now, Luciano had me measure, and this was kind of funny. This actually worked out pretty good. Glenn pulled the clutch apart, and the minimum, we measured the stack. The stack was within spec. I think it was 38 millimeters, I don't remember. But the individual plates, the fiber plates, measure out at 3 millimeter. Well, we found one that was below spec out of the whole stack. So I'm sure what's going to happen, we're going to try to squeeze some extra time out of this clutch, and he'll probably get a new Barnett clutch eventually anyway. But cleaning up all the parts, the usual. I wanted to show Glenn a trick we used in drag racing years ago. Just scuffing the individual steel plates, not the fiber plates, just the steel ones. And if you're a drag racer, you know this is standard procedure. We deglazed everything, cleaned everything immaculately clean. And this is the second time in a week that we're getting really good use out of this bike lift. I'm really, anybody that doesn't have one of these, they're $300 in Harbor Freight. And they are so handy. The day you have it and the first day you use it, you wonder why you waited so long to get it. So Glenn didn't know. The guy told him this was a Barnett clutch. I have no way of knowing. But when he took the stack out, I wasn't sure that we had looked on the internet, and Glenn, when he pulled it out, see, we didn't know if it was right to begin with, that the clutch was really slipping. So anyway, he downloaded some stuff from the internet. We called Luciano 15 times, and we pulled the wheel. We didn't have time to pull the sprocket. We had gotten involved in doing a lot of other little detail cleanups. And we pulled the clutch out, looked at the chart, and talked to Luciano and tried to figure out if we could upgrade this in some way, or probably put it back upside down. I'm not sure. We're going to find out. But then the big job, and this is something everybody could pick up on, because we've done it and had this thing happen several times now. The master cylinder for the clutch, there's little tiny holes that clog up with debris. When they do, the system doesn't bleed back out. And when it doesn't bleed back out, it starts putting pressure as if you're squeezing the clutch. And when that happens, the clutch slips, which I don't know if the problem is that Glenn just has a worn out clutch, or this, or both. So we decided to take this apart, and this was the first Ducati master cylinder I had taken apart. Comes apart relatively straightforward and easy, but the junk, if you look at these Q-tips, I took 30 or 40 Q-tips and just kept cleaning. It was filthy inside. I ran a pin through the holes. Now, hopefully, once it's all back together, that we've solved the problem, but we still don't know. The reason was, it was pretty funny, because what happened was we didn't have the ability to test it in any way, because there's no chain on the bike. Glenn is getting a chain this week. We're going to spend another day on this bike, do some cleaning, some polishing, get the chain back on it, and here he is, happy. Glenn and I have come to a really good rapport working in my garage. It's been an enjoyable day, and Karen made us a little bite to eat, and we just went cruising through this day. It really was a lot of fun. Actually, one of the neat things is I did shoot a couple little tiny videos here, that just because I was going to send them to Luciano, but I didn't think it was even worth doing. And this is the countershaft sprocket thing. I'm not sure if you...
Here, of course. And the whole thing is loose. You can wobble it on the shaft.
Now maybe they're all like that.
There's a lot of clearance between that shaft. So, I mean, we're going to send you this video when we take a coffee break. Look at that.
So I don't know if that's really the ultimate problem here. Well, they all make noise like that. Stop being a baby.